Welcome to AstroChat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monika Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And we are here to talk with you about the upcoming full moon in Virgo. Woohoo! Happening in March. But first, a quick introduction. If you haven't been here before, or if you have been here before, then you already know. I'm Kimberly Williams. I'm a professional astrologer from Texas, and I'm joined by some amazing astrologers. We have Monika Anna from the UK and Anne Sundell from Finland. And so we're here to give you our points of view about the upcoming lunation. I had a note here to myself that we have some notes to share. There's some exciting announcements coming forward. Monika, you want to talk about the latest and greatest with your book?
Oh, thanks. So yeah, book is actually officially published now on the 7th of March, as mentioned before. And my publisher in UK, Liminal 11, is doing some cool giveaways on Instagram and also some interesting things that you can win. So have a look. I can't give away too much, but have a look at their profile on Instagram, Liminal 11, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the luck will be, or the fortune will be on your side.
And hopefully we can remember to put the link to that in the description below, or at the very least in the comments, so that people will be able to just click and get over there. And I think you had an interesting class coming up at your school. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a class with Kimberly Williams, and you are doing Lilith. So we get a chance to dive into what Lilith might mean for us and get to know her a little better. And I know that there are many people that are already very, very interested in joining, but it will be actually the day after the full moon. So we will see you. You will join us in Finland at our school, Selomatkalla.
I am so looking forward to that. Talking about Black Moon Lilith is one of my favorite topics, and I'm looking forward to meeting your students, because the bits and pieces I've heard from you, it just sounds like an amazing program and an amazing group of people.
They are very happy to meet you too, so it will be great.
Yeah. We also have some just things to point out about the chart today that we're going to look at. I'll pull it up in a minute after we talk about the moon. But one of the things that Anne mentioned, we want to point out, we're going to talk a bit about Saturn. Saturn will be ingressing. But when we look at the chart, it's going to show Saturn at 29 degrees. And if we are relocating that chart to other places on the globe, it might show 0 degrees of Pisces. So you want to look and see, maybe run a quick chart for yourself and see, where is Saturn? What time is that ingress happening for you where you live? For those of you living close to the UK, you're probably going to have, the standard time we're seeing in the chart, but that's just something to point out, that time is going to be dependent on where you are on that date line. We also have something interesting in regards to Pluto. Pluto, which is the modern ruler for Scorpio, is making a square to our nodes. We've talked a lot the last few weeks about the nodal axis and the Scorpio-Taurus energies. So we're not going to dive into it too much today. We'll probably be talking about this in the weeks to come. But if you have, 29 degrees of Capricorn or 0 degrees of Aquarius as something very significant in your chart, then you might want to pay attention to what's happening with that there. All right, I think those are our notes of little things to point out that we may or may not get into. So let's start off by talking about the chart. We are dealing with a lovely full moon at 16 degrees and 40 minutes of Virgo. It's going to be happening on Tuesday, March 7th. If you're here in the central time zone of the US, we're going to have that early, 6:39 in the morning. So not much to look at, but we sure will be feeling it. Over in the UK at 12:39 in the afternoon, and over in Finland, 2:39 p.m. So again, we're not getting that visual at the exact moment. We'll be getting it a few hours later after the sun goes down. We're going to be talking about what's happening from March 7th until the next lunation of the new moon in Aries on March 21st. So that's our 2-week window that we're looking at. And I think I'm taking it away by starting us off with our talking about the moon in that sign of the month of the lunation. So we're dealing with the moon in Virgo, which I'm very excited to talk about. In case you don't know or you haven't heard me say, I have a lot of Virgo in my chart. So I feel very well acquainted and knowledgeable on this topic. The first thing I want to say about Virgo is very focused on quality. What is going to improve my quality of life? What is going to improve your quality of life? What improves the quality of life for others? That's really kind of the undercurrent that drives so many of the things we know of as Virgo. And some of the things we know of as Virgo is that idea of being of service. It's very much a service-oriented sign. It's about wanting to do the work that is going to be helpful, that's going to help others. So a lot of the industries and careers and fields associated with Virgo, like medicine, hospitality, they seem unrelated, but at their core, they're all about being of service and helping others. I think for me, the key thing about Virgo to understand is Virgo is, it's ruled by Mercury. And unlike Gemini, whose Mercury rulership is a lot more multitasking, Virgo is like, how do I apply? When we were in college and we had the hard sciences and then the applied sciences. Yeah, well, Virgo is the applied Mercury. How can I use my mind and my skills and communication to be of service, to move through the world, to improve quality? So organization, finding ways, creating lists. I think Virgo is the ultimate list maker. Sometimes I've been accused of having lists, organizing my lists. And when I use my phone, yes, I indeed do have a list of my lists. It's the only way that this mind can feel that it's all focused. A lot of Virgo energy people that I know talk about how they really benefit from doing a mind dump every night. We're not necessarily using that information the next day to plan, but it's that idea of the mind is constantly going with the tasks that are at hand. And what do we need to do? The other thing is, Virgo gets a bad rap as being persnickety, being the naysayer, being the critic. Well, Virgo energy is about perfecting, constantly improving. All of our mutable signs want to learn and want to change in some way. How can we look at what's been and make it better? And if anyone's ever organized an event, how after the event we do the feedback session and what worked and what didn't, right? We're verbally having discussion where we make the list of the pros and the cons. How Virgo can you get? It's very much about that analysis and then using that information to improve, because the desire of Virgo is for constant improvement. No matter what we're doing, there's always a way to make it feel better or smoother or more efficient. And so sometimes when we're speaking from that place of looking for improvements, looking for efficiency, what others might hear is the list of criticisms and the list of critiques. So I always encourage people to remember that if they are in conversation with somebody who seems to have a lot of Virgo, to stop and remember that if this is the outer person coming forward, if the person is displaying a Virgo tendency of making a long laundry list of what you could do that would be even better, even though you thought it was good enough, just remember that internally, chances are they have an entire novel of what they need to do better. So it's not so much about picking apart as it is, how can we move forward? There's a lot more that I could say about Virgo. In fact, I could probably spend a few days, but I'll stop there. I'll pause and hear what my cohorts, who also have pretty significant Virgos in their charts, have to say about this great sign.
Yes, I think we do have a significant Virgo placement. One thing that whenever I think about Virgo, it's all about discernment. It's all about kind of separating the wheat from the chaff and making sure that we know what's good and healthy and what's rotten and we need to get rid of. So it's Virgo is the zodiac sign that comes around harvest, and I always kind of link that to the harvest that we used to bring. When you bring the bounty of the land in, for storage, you really need to be super careful not to put anything that is slightly rotten or slightly off with the harvest, because it will spoil the whole harvest and you won't be able to survive winter. So that kind of discernment, it's so laser focused, because it's not just about I just want another list. At the time, it's about survival. If I'm going to miss that small thing that looks insignificant, that small thing in 2 months can spoil the whole harvest that I just collected and I'm storing over winter for me and my family and my community to live through until the next spring. So that kind of laser focus for Virgo, what you're kind of, Kimberly, bringing up, it's not because we want to pick on something, it's because that one thing can spoil a bigger solution, bigger problem. Virgo, having it's on a project, with Virgo is brilliant, because they'll pick all those little things that, potentially can trip the whole project up. But what I always smile, because we always discussed in astrology how Virgo is organized and how many lists they have, but we don't talk about the chaos that is around. And Virgo is opposing Pisces, those, it's not either or. We always talked about astrology. This is the polarities that have to work with each other. So we have to have that, that discernment, and we have to have a chaos within us. We have Virgo placement somewhere in our chart, and we have chaos placement, or Piscean placement, chaos placement, Freudian slip, somewhere in our chart as well. And whenever I think about Virgo, and that will just show my age, but I think of the episode of Friends where Monica, when Chandler found Monica naughty closet, Monica is the quintessential kind of Virgo archetype, with cleaning and everything has to be just right. And whenever someone was trying to bring something to her apartment or change the way the apartment was organized or arranged, she would freak out, right? But then Chandler finds the one cupboard in a house where it's just a messy cupboard. You open the doors and everything just falls on you because it's just stuck in there. I think. So this is what reminds me of Virgo and that Piscean placement. When you look at your own chart, have a look where you're super organized, and have a look where is the chaos. In the opposite, because this is what we do. We can't be completely organized in every aspect of our life, because that would prevent that kind of chaotic, flowy, go with the flow energy going somewhere. We need that energy in some aspects of our lives. So, this is always interesting. And I think with the full moon again, we're bringing that Virgo energy to the forefront, so we can be celebrating our achievement, making a list of our achievement. This is awesome moon to make a list of what have I achieved up to this point, whether it's from the last month, from the last 6 months. Maybe you can do a little summary of what have I achieved around for the last year, from one Virgo to another. This is a perfect one to make a list. But it's also the time where the chaos can surface, the dark side or the shadow side of Virgo. Where is the chaos, and how do I deal with that? Do I use the Virgo energy to try to control it? Do I just have one space in my life when I'm okay with having chaos, like that, messy cupboard or messy room, or my house has to be completely organized and very minimalistic, but then I have a messy, she shed in the back of the garden when every box, every, broken doll, every, broken computer equipment's going there. Where is the chaos, and how do I deal with that? And does it, raise my anxiety, or can I actually make space in my life for the chaos. There's so much more to say about that, especially Virgo being the last placement of the, so to speak, individual zodiac signs before we go and meet the other with Libra. And then from Libra to Pisces, we have that relationship with the other. So it's interesting placement in between that as well. But I will stop here because, again, we can talk about Virgo for probably another few episodes.
Yeah, there's so much to say about Virgo, and I wanted to bring up this full moon's degree, Sabian Symbol, because it also speaks to some other features that we will have talk more about later. And this is quite interesting because it sets a volcanic eruption and to explore sensitive energy that comes from the subconscious. And I mean, when we're looking at fishes and Virgo, I also see Virgo as the organizer. I think about Virgo fishes polarity also as very karmic polarity, where Virgo has the role of taking those karmic gifts, karmic material we have with us and making it something that we can use in this lifetime to make the order out of that chaos that we are coming from spiritually. And also with this moon comes some purification of old karmic issues, of looking at what's the side that we maybe don't want to look at, and how can we get those feelings grounded somehow, and how can we get them organized for ourselves. But this is a very, very karmic moon, also in the Sabian symbol, but also because of the polarity of these two signs.
That's really interesting. I love that it's the volcanic eruption, because when we think about Virgo, there's often this focus on organization, and anyone who knows me knows I'm not always the most organized up front. It's the after the eruption, after the chaos has ensued, after something's exploded, that's where Virgo can come in and organize everything. You know, if you've got the I need to, minimalize my house and you need to help clear the clutter, Virgo can come in now that there is clutter and help organize and put all of it in its spot, rather than not always is Virgo about keeping the organization up front or starting it, but often it's in response to what has preceded or what has gone. So I kind of think it's interesting how the Virgo and the chaos can sometimes dovetail, like Monika was starting to say. So that should be really interesting to see how that Sabian symbol plays out.
It is, isn't it? I've loved what you said, that I actually made a note, order out of chaos. Because it's like just what I was saying earlier, we can't control every aspect of our life. We can't control every aspect of our emotions, of the way we react, of the way people are around us, of the way, we are creative, or we can't control everything. And if we try, something will erupt, and it will explode. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting full moon. That's for sure. It's going to be impulsive, not interesting. Impulsive full moon. It's going to be eruptive full moon with some of those aspects that we'll speak to in a minute. And I think that kind of theme of chaos and order is very much, something to journal on and reflect on. How do we organize after the chaos, like Kimberly said, or how do we embrace chaos so it doesn't erupt and disrupt something that we already have organized? And going back to that purification, and I love that you touched on that as well. This is going back to, for me personally, is again, Virgo and purity has such a bad connotation in the Western world because it kind of feels like, something is unclean, so to speak. But it's that kind of purity, like one of the teachers always said to me, it's that kind of purity in terms of like science or chemicals, like just being one to itself. Like pure gold, it means that it's pure gold, that there's nothing else added to it, no other mineral. And that kind of purity that, you know, when you're at one with yourself, you're at one with yourself. That's the purity of Virgo, that you're authentic, something that we're talking about, you know, with Aquarius. But with Virgo, that purity is, this is who I am, and I know who I am, and I can discern what's mine and what's someone else's, you know, what is me and what's been given to me. So I think that kind of, that layer of that full moon as well is like, what do you need to purify, so to speak, to shed anything that has been given to you by your conditioning, by your religion, by your country, by your family, you name it, you know, ... you put it, what applicable. And how can you purify it, cleanse that, so you can become more who you are?
And that supports what we've all been saying about this axis of Virgo and Pisces and how they work together, because Virgo is helping us learn how to remove the impurities. Then we can be the one, and everything can be one, which is the Pisces side of it. So, and speaking of Pisces, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the chart that we're going to look at. And then I think Anne's going to start us off by talking about what is that Pisces? What are the fishes doing in this chart? So give me just 1 second.
And my first impulse when I look at these planets in Pisces, I'm going to try to say Pisces, and then the moon in Virgo this is wrong, which suits Virgo thinking. We have Mercury in Pisces, and it would be much easier if that would be the other way around, but it's opposing a wide opposition. Karmic astrology, we work with 10 degrees orbs many times there. So we're looking at wide orbs. Here we have quite wide orbs with Mercury and also with Neptune. And of course, the sun is opposing also the moon. So to try to make a combination of, when we have an opposition, I feel that we many times go from one end to the other end, trying to find the balance. But it's also easy for us to escape by living the one end of it and then the other side of it without connecting them. And this is what I feel with Virgo and Pisces, that Virgo might go finding, for example, the criticism in everything, the feeling of analyzing too much, instead of actually feeling the feelings that are behind this analyze. And with Mercury in Pisces, it might be that your feelings and your thinking is opposed. It's like I think this, but I feel in a different way. And to get those two combined, sometimes with these two signs, I feel that it's very sensitive. It can also be like psychosomatic. It can be so sensitive that you react with the body for feelings that you can't express, and the body will express them for you, or you will have a physical way of getting them out through Virgo. Like also Virgo can be nervous. It can be like a feeling of needing to do something practically when the feelings that you may not want to acknowledge is knocking on your door. So this is a lot about what I spoke about earlier, to try to take those more, to try to create order from the chaos, and to not analyze the feelings too much, but actually feel them and then let them pass and acknowledge them without getting to either blame yourself for things that you might not have done as well as you wanted to, or blame others for faults you see. But as Monika said, also make a list of all the good things you achieved, because a full moon is the time of looking at how far you have come with what you wanted to do. But it can also be a time when the shadow of those feelings are catching up with you, and it might feel like chaotic. So it's also important to try to ground yourself in that Virgo moon and try to see, also maybe do something really practically if you feel that you can't find those feelings, that to try to still have a peace with it and let it pass. Like, yeah, if you get what I'm meaning, what I try to explain.
Absolutely.
So how do you see those? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's you brought up just so much to unpack here. But I love what you said about that kind of feelings versus mind. And if your mind can't control, again, we're going back to that word chaos. If your mind can't control the vastness, the ocean of your emotional response, it will come up, it will erupt, going back to that Sabian symbol, volcanic eruption, it will erupt within your body with inflammation. It will erupt with a rush. It will erupt with a pain. It will come up and your body will feel it. It's not just chaos, it's all the vastness of the emotion. Like Piscean archetype is the archetype without the boundaries, right? So this is, again, those emotions that we feel, how porous are our boundaries. Can we feel just our emotions? Can we feel everything around us? And how do we deal with that? How we contain that? How do we, I guess, work with it? Because we can't control everything, but how do we contain it? How do we work with that chaos, with those emotions, with that vastness, to allow it to flow through us, to allow it to a certain extent? Obviously, we can't just go for it too far, but to allow it to have a space and expression for it in a healthier way, in a healthier environment, right? I mean, if you need like really strong emotions to erupt from you, maybe go to the places where you can just scream. I mean, you can just go to a forest and just scream your lungs out, right? Or you can go to one of those places when you just need to hit something with like a baseball bat and make you feel better. That might be a healthier expression than coming home and screaming at your partner or at your children, because it all comes up and it's erupting. For me, it's interesting as well that Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces and Mercury is the ruler of the Virgo. So Virgo ruler Mercury is actually swimming in those Piscean waters with the Neptune. It's responding to Neptune. It's responding to that god of water, of the emotions, of all that. So Mercury in those waters is not about so much intellectually catching that. It's not about giving a label to your feeling. It's not about, looking up in like a dictionary of what might be wrong with you because you feel so much at the same time and it's confusing, it's chaotic. Mercury in Pisces, to me, it's more of a, how can I communicate through different means than just words? Can I communicate through music? Can I communicate to others through a hug? Can I communicate through others through just being sensitive? I mean, it's really interesting. One of the training sessions that I had years ago, it was literally sitting opposite someone. I can't speak today again. Mercury in Pisces, right? I was sitting opposite someone without talking, just opposite someone. The amount of stuff you can sense and feel through that, and it wasn't any part of like a psychic training. It was actually part of the psychology training that I was having. It's just the amount of emotions that you can deduct and feel from the other person just by sitting and looking at someone, just by looking into their eyes. So what is it, within that Mercury in Pisces that you can learn from to communicate with yourself and with others without the necessity for label, without the necessity for putting something in the box and making that list, that Virgo pull of like, but I want to understand, I want that list, but I want to, bullet point everything that's going wrong with our relationship. Well, maybe we just need to sit down together and breathe together. Or maybe we just need to go for for a swim, and cool off in a cold, waters or something. What is it about that Piscean waters that we can learn, and bring that healing? Again, Virgo is an ultimate sign of healers, right? There are healers in every zodiac, but Virgo is the kind of ultimate one that brings that healing and being of service. But I think what the Virgo draws on is, in that ultimate positive aspects of healing, is that space, that numinous space that Pisces is talking about. So I'm going to.
Yeah. I really liked, Anne, too, how you brought up the body with this, because for me, the moon is always, in addition to all of its other significators, is always about the body and what's going on there. And when I saw this aspect, the first thing I thought of was Virgo is going to say, I need to create a container for all that water. All the fishes are just swimming everywhere and I need to contain it. And so if it's the moon, then we contain it in our body. And so I think that it's really perhaps a good time to kind of think about, do I need to let some emotions flow and go? And maybe do I need to do some type of something that's a gentle detox? Maybe getting a massage to let things out, or paying attention to food. A lot of religions, a lot of cultures actually use those 3 weeks before the next lunation, right before the vernal equinox. And they use that time to detox, to kind of purge, to release. And so when I look at this, I'm just thinking it's really a good time, both seasonally and then with this chart, to look at how can I support my body in releasing whatever emotions it is holding on to. And then the other thing is kind of tagging on to where Monika was going. I think the big issue here is a preponderant tendency to want to question one's own emotions. Well, why do I feel that way? As a way to understand, as a way to bring order, and without realizing it, we can just go into, I'm so sad, but why am I sad? I feel so melancholy about. Pisces isn't about the logic, right? We're swimming in these waters. Something that happened 5 years ago on a Pisces moon might be stirring in the back of our mind, and yet our logical mind is saying, but why? That shouldn't happen, or what should I do about it, or how do I, quote, fix it, which is another Virgo tendency. And so I just want to kind of say that this might be a time, as a friend of mine who's a follower of Buddhism would say, it might be time to make space. The container maybe isn't the body. Maybe the container is making space so that I can sit with my feelings and just feel those feelings without questioning them, and then release them and let them go. That's kind of what I see with this Neptune Mercury kind of pinging with the moon. And I agree with Anne that it would be so much easier if the planets would reverse roles, if they would reverse signs. It would be a very easy dynamic to manage. But because of that Mercury in the fishes, it's a little challenging.
I think it's like, let's maybe talk as well about the another aspect of Virgo Pisces polarity is the artistic aspect. We need that touch of madness and chaos for the art and creativity, but you also need to be pretty organized. If the inspiration strikes and you have no, pencils and no, no tools to actually create that painting, well, what will you do it with? There are interesting answers to that as well. But it's like, sometimes those two work in tandem. We need that. And this is the beauty of astrology that I think I'm probably just talking way too much. But that idea of the polarities, really to bring them together. How do you create that container, have the tools and have your list and being organized, and at the same time you're opening yourself up for that chaos, for that creativity, for that mood and Mercury in Pisces inspiration to take you on. But you do have the tools on the side, so you're ready, but you're also ready for that chaos. It's like Kimberly always says, it's end both. It's not either or, it's end. Again, going back to Sabian Symbol and that you brought up earlier, this lunation, surprise talks to Uranus again. So we mentioned on the previous episode that those full moons this year, they're kind of aligning around that 16 degrees of zodiac. So we had 16-degree full moon in January, in February. Now there's one in March. There's another one in April, and then we have an eclipse, I think, at the 14 or late 14, nearly 15 degree in May. And Uranus, because it's hovering over that, 14, 15 degree of Taurus, it's speaking to all those lunations, which is really, really interesting, that it's just not letting go that Uranian energy. I mean, full moon, as we always say, has that kind of eruptive, out of the blue kind of release of energy theme anyhow, because it's that opposition of two luminaries, there's nowhere to hide, and then basically the light just erupts. It's a full moon. We feel a little bit, charged. When we add to that a planet that is ultimate charger, ultimate lightning bolt, ultimate electricity, it's like, it's having that full moon on steroids. It's just, full moon to the nth degree. And Uranus is not letting go. It's speaking to every full moon that it's happening the first half of the year. So the whole idea about eruption, whether it's erupting, our emotions erupting, whether it's actual, physical manifestation in Earth with the earthquakes or volcanoes, there is that kind of underlying energy of something coming to the surface and trying to break through. And Uranus, again, for me as an aspect, psychological aspect, is the moment where we can have a breakthrough. And sometimes you have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. I do not recommend that, but often, people go through a really difficult, hard time, and then they see the, so to speak, the light. That's very cliche, but that does happen, right? Sometimes it's the moment of like lightning bulb. Yeah, I know what I need to do with my life, or I know I need to quit that job, or I know I need to, go for this person, or actually quit that person. That moment of like understanding that comes seemingly from nowhere, but it's really that deep understanding that you always had. You just kind of got in touch with it. And Uranus is bringing that to every full moon. So there is something not just around this full moon in Virgo, but kind of carrying on as a theme at the beginning of this year. And then the Uranus will be also sitting close to the to Sun at the moon eclipse in May. So again, it will be there, visible, so to speak. It will be then stirring again with an eclipse. So what is it around breakthroughs that we can make, the breakthroughs that we can prepare ourselves and utilize that energy? What is it about any karmic issues or complexes or themes that we can allow ourselves to break through? Uranus can break those chains that holding us back. So if you have actually any planet around 16, 15 degrees of the zodiac sign, especially the with this full moon, cardinal or fix, there is something that can be released, that can be let go of, that can be purified with this new moon, and allow, fresh waters and fresh inspiration to come through.
Yeah, I love the fact that Uranus is not only making that trine to the moon, it's making that sextile to the sun. And so both the luminaries are shining their light here. And with Uranus and Taurus, I feel like this is definitely about a breakthrough, perhaps a realization that is a breakthrough. And I think a lot of this energy, it's interesting that Uranus has been linking into the full moons each month, not the new moons, the full moons, right? When the shadow cannot hide, when the light is there. So I'm wondering, is there something about the resources I bring to the table that I haven't valued, that I'm now learning or recognizing or valuing? Is that light bulb? A lot of times we talk about Taurus, it's about the financial resources, about money and income, but it can be so much more. What about the talents I have, the skills I have, that thing that I did that I never saw as a money maker? after all that we've been through since 2020, so many people with, COVID and with having to be at home and changing jobs and a lot of entrepreneurial startup home-based businesses, I think society, the mindset that so many of us have has changed in terms of what are my skills, my talents, my inner resources. They now have an ability to produce revenue that they didn't once have, collectively speaking. So I'm really curious to see, as this kind of keeps happening every month, is that some of the revelation, the breakthrough, the aha, that I need to value this, and if I value it, then the world will value it. Then I'll get some money from abundance from it. But until I value it, that skill, that talent, that gift, that thing that makes me, my authentic self, until I bring it forward and really feel that, it has worth in this world, not just to me personally, that might be a prerequisite to it generating the money, the revenue that we want.
Yeah.
And then, of course, and I don't want to step over, Anne, if you have thoughts about it, but let's not forget that moon is also, making a lovely T-square, the sun and the moon, to Mars hanging out at 21 degrees of Gemini. So there's some real volatile tension happening. The Mars is still out of bounds. We've talked about that quite a bit in the past few months. And it'll be out of bounds until May, I believe. So what is it that I need to take action on? What's going on with my communication? What's going on where maybe I'm holding back? Is the communication with my linear logical Virgo mind, or, that kind of self-talk, or is this communicating with my higher self, with spirit, with the Pisces energy? I think there might be some tension about dreaming the big imaginary dream, the vision, and making it real. And what is the challenge here is I have to do it. I have to take that step. I don't know. What do you guys think?
With that Mars in Gemini, it kind of feels to me that with Gemini, there's always two options. Do I want to go this way or that way? It kind of feels a little bit like, again, around the full moon, we have two options presented to us. We have two ways of going, let alone obviously the polarity between, do we go with chaos or do we all go with order? But there's something around that Mars and that, like you say, action, call to action, that asks us, which path will you choose? In the light of the full moon, with two luminaries speaking to one another from, and shining with that light, which path will you choose? There's something beautiful and something kind of haunting around that. I'm just thinking, not going to talk much about that because we'll probably touch on that in a next episode as well. But Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn is squaring the nodal axis. So again, there is this kind of feeling of something being fated. There are big things happening with the Pluto and the nodal axis. There's always that really powerful pull on our soul, and that's the kind of underlying theme. If this was a rock band, or if that was a jazz band or something, the Pluto node would be that bass kind of like, like really quietly in the background, but they're giving the whole, the other instruments the kind of the bass of what they can and cannot do, that kind of underlying hum, if that makes sense. And people who probably speak music, so to speak, they'll tell me otherwise. But there's this kind of the melody, the kind of humming of Pluto squaring the nodes, and that deep, intense kind of pull into the underworld, into our souls. That we've talked about the nodes as well a lot. And that is that sound. And then we have all that noise with the Virgo and the Pisces and Mars with the whole chaos going which path will you choose? You know, it's a call to action. Which path will you choose?
And when you said call to action, yeah. When you said call to action, I think about the T-square as looking at the missing part of the T-square, and we have mutable signs, but we also have the other side of it that's in Sagittarius. So to look for the Sagittarius part of this, also the higher way to take this energy and bring it into something, maybe more to set a goal, a vision for that goal that we're going to aim at with those other planets.
Yeah.
Beautiful point. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, for me, the issue with a T-square is always that missing sign, right? It's like a three-legged table. If we apply any pressure, it's going to wobble. If we can develop that Sagittarius energy, it gives us a sense of stability and it balances things out. And so I'm thinking that we may feel the call to action, and we may feel, going with that Pisces and moon energy, that our feelings are, I don't know which way to act, or I'm afraid to act, or where should I act? It's just kind of chaos on an emotional level. Well, maybe if we transfer that into a call to adventure and where that will lead. And if we don't really know what that call to adventure is about, perhaps a few days after the eclipse, I think it's on the 11th of March, transiting Venus in Aries will be exactly sextile that Mars. So we'll catch up, they'll be sextile. And so what it is that, I truly desire to start and to initiate, I'm now ready to take action on. And perhaps it's the first, we have to be willing to sit in that emotional space, to do the releasing we've talked about. Seems to me that it connects together, that after that releasing happens, there might be space about, what do I really feel called to initiate? And can I see it as an adventure I'm stepping on, as opposed to the, will I succeed? Will I fail? Long laundry list kind of task scenario, which can be overwhelming.
Yeah. And let's be honest, this full moon can be overwhelming. Between the full moon energy, like we said, and then Uranus obviously being there as well, and then two significant planets, both Pluto and Saturn, hanging there at 29 degrees, which is really, again, yet another degree that says, have you learned your lesson? All the accumulation of that sign, of that archetypes kind of hovering over that, it can feel quite overwhelming. So yeah, just be gentle with yourself. Use the Piscean and Virgo energy as well to be gentle with yourself and kind to yourself.
And with that, Anne, do you want to lead us into the talking about that Saturn hanging out at 29 Aquarius?
Yeah, well, this is so karmic as it gets. 129, 59. So it's like really, or 000 can also be very karmically induced. Saturn going into Pisces. How do we combine boundaries with something that's boundless? And how do we it's hard to get a grip on this. It's several things in this chart that makes it hard to express in words and structure it somehow. The people that are born 93 will now experience the Saturn return, because Saturn will be at the same place. So that will be also the generation, was it called Set? That also a generation that has been associated a lot with being into astrology. And maybe we have also seen that as having them around as astrologers. But with Saturn, that want to find boundaries, but also I feel that Saturn can be a place meant where we can be excellent, when we can actually develop that sign at its best. In the fish's sign, then we might get into, it might be that we want to go back and forth between the Saturnian way of seeing, creating rules, but also a bit rebelling against them at the same time because we don't like them. So it might also maybe have quite a spiritual meaning when we think about how do we structure the spirituality we have with fishes, or the artistic gifts we have in that sign, or how can we bring them down to earth? How can we make them more, how can I say, give them more status somehow? So that's another thing that I associate with Saturn in fishes, but also that when it's a breaking point at this last degree, we usually also take that sign quite black and white. So it's Aquarian sign. So we can feel that we really, and Aquarians, it's a quite stubborn sign. So it might also be that we really want to go into extremes, and Aquarius can also be very rebellious. So it might be a bit about my way or highway style of things. So that can also be more heightened with that last degree during this full moon, with all the emotions and other things. But it's also a karmic cleaning place. We are now finally done with Saturn in Aquarius and all the themes that has brought the last few years, and maybe looking back at that sequence in our life and what did I bring and what did I learn might also be something good to do during this moon. But how do you see Saturn in Aquarius and in Pisces?
Rocks, paper, scissors.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead, Monika?
Saturn in Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is ruler, traditional ruler of Aquarius. And I think, again, we've spoke, or at least I feel like I've spoken at length about Saturn in Aquarius and the idea of, the rebellion needs an understanding and have, some kind of boundaries as well. Without that, we're running into chaos, right? So the Saturn and Aquarian energy, for me, it works because you need to understand. I think it was it Picasso who said that you need to learn the rules like a pro to break them like an artist or something like that. But there is this kind of element of, if you don't understand the rules and the boundaries, you can't bring that revolutionary insight into them, so that kind of works for me. With Saturn moving to Pisces, those ingresses do not happen often, right? So let's just put it out there, what people feel at the moment as well. And if you feel kind of overwhelmed, if you feel those unusual emotions, right, is because there are two significant planets moving to a new sign that has not happened in few years. So Saturn has not moved to a new sign in 2 years, and when he'll move into Pisces, he'll stay there until 2025. So it's a really big and significant change. And again, with Pluto, I don't remember when Pluto moved to Capricorn. I don't have the dates at the moment. But when Pluto moved, again, that's a huge transit. That few years transit. So when Pluto will move to Aquarius, again, it's going to stay there for years to come. So we're feeling that shift to completely new archetype on a personal level, on a societal level. And Saturn in Pisces for me, and you touched on so many things. I actually was making notes here. How do you put time into timelessness and boundaries into boundless? Like, this is the key for Saturn. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you have father time and the boundaries. And Saturn is the kind of boundary of our solar system, something that we can see obviously with the naked eye, right? And how do we put that into Piscean archetype that it's boundless and timeless? I do think that with Saturn in Pisces, there are two main themes coming up. One is the kind of shadow side, and you've mentioned of spirituality rising and the false prophets. So Saturn as a master, and and Pisces as the kind of sign of chaos and spirituality, but that can create quite a few spiritual masters that will arise over the next couple years. So again, if you are into the spiritual world, just pay attention to how people will present themselves over the next couple years, because it can bring quite a few chaotic individuals. I was looking for a different word. Interesting. Chaotic and misleading and foggy and Neptunian individuals. But Saturn in Pisces as well, for me, and I think we've talked about it on a previous episode, for me, Saturn and Pisces, the mastering and the boundaries and beauty and the spirituality, it can be actually created beautiful harmony of creating, your rituals, creating your celebrations, Saturn and Pisces, having your new moon ritual every new moon, that's Saturn in Pisces for me. That's creating that timed, boundary to have every new moon. I'm going to sit down on my favorite blanket and put that candle and sit with my tarot deck, or sit with my journal, or sit with, I don't know, put on my robe, whatever you do. This is spiritual expression, but you're giving it a time and you're giving it a structure. It's not like today I feel and today I don't feel. That's Pisces. Saturn goes, no, every full moon we'll do a gratitude meditation. Every new moon we'll plant the seed, an intention. That can actually help us create a beautiful structure around our spiritual life, sustain our spiritual life, and give us mastery within that space. If you want to learn tarot, Saturn in Pisces can help you, give you that grounding and foundation to dive deeper into your spiritual life, into, I don't know, learning about tarot and journeying with that tool, and learning more about the archetypes. If you want to learn astrology, again, and you mentioned that generation with Saturn in Pisces is very much interested in astrology. For me, astrology is very Saturnian and Piscean, because you have that intuition and that kind of beauty of the boundless sky, and yet you're putting it in very contained, time-bound chart. So we can create something beautiful with those two archetypes, but there is a real material shadow that can come out of that, with false prophets, with people creating boundaries around Piscean ecstasy and excess.
Very interesting. I'm just going to throw out there, I'm not going to go too much about Saturn and Aquarius, because we have talked about it so much since 2020, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a new sign on Saturn and what that can bring. One of the things that you mentioned, Anne, was about what we're looking for status about. And I do think if we look at the last 2 years overall, 2 to 3 years overall, what we can see is that the alternative sector is now accepted. It has status. It's not oh, you work from home, or oh, you have a side hustle. We had the Great Resignation, followed by lots of people starting things up. We've had a lot of people moving into alternative type areas. If you go on any Instagram, TikTok, pick a social media, you're going to find a gazillion things on astrology and massage and acupuncture, and all the things that once were labeled or designated as a little out there are now much more accepted and have status and recognition amongst mainstream society. So yay for that. We've seen there's been a lot of infighting within those structures. Even in astrology, during this transit, I've noticed a lot of different schools of thought. Kind of, this is the right way. No, this is the right way. In fact, that was one of the reasons that I believe propelled the three of us to start this, was to say, let's have a space where we can have a safe space to not only see where we agree, but see where we maybe do it differently, and let all those ideas be valid. So, yay for that happening. I'm really looking at, where is Aquarius in my chart? Or if you're at home, where's Aquarius in your chart? That's the area of life. That house, that area of life is where you have personally experienced this transit. And so I think that, Saturn to me is the wise old crone. Imagine somebody's very elderly grandmother or great grandmother who has been around the block and overcome some obstacles and had to, put in her dues, as it were, and is going to sit you down and tell you life like it is and tell you what you need to know and not sugarcoat it. So yes, there have been obstacles and there have been challenges and there have been delays, but what did you learn in this area of life? What foundation have you now built because of those challenges? And how are you going to build on that foundation when it moves into Pisces? And so I think it's a very exciting time when Saturn's shifting, because we get that retrospective and we get that what's coming in. And as Monika said, Pisces being mutable, there's two sides. What I'm envisioning as the two sides of Saturn and Pisces is, on the one hand, Saturn can take the Piscean dream and make it a reality. On the other hand, we can get lost in the dream and be clueless about how to make it reality because the Pisces overwhelms, or we can become so Saturnian that it overwhelms the Pisces and we don't give ourselves time and space to even dream the dream. We go straight into the doing and the planning mode, or we are the naysayer who says that's a great dream, but it doesn't exist in reality. And we start throwing dirt on the fire and putting it out. Or, I guess I should use a water analogy since it's Pisces, but you get what I'm saying, that, when they work together, there can be this beautiful harmony, but when one tries to overshadow the other, we get lost. And I think there's going to be a lot of flip-flop and vacillation, to use a Piscean term, where I'm a little too stuck in reality this month and I'm like squashing my dreams, and whoop, I'm a little too lost in what I want and what I'm yearning for, and maybe disappointed, and whoop, and I'm back. And so we get 2 or 3 years now to experience that and find a way of finding that harmony point of how we can start to build and create, what we've been envisioning. That's probably the happiest thing I've ever said about Saturn. Just thought of that,
Yeah.
going, wow, I think I've actually, through this last transit, developed a bit of a more open, healthy relationship, and am listening to Saturn as she talks to me.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I knew you'd like that, you Saturnian girl. So
I hope that will happen sometime for me in my life. In the future, that's a dream.
that's a good
vision.
Piscean
That's the
dream.
Saturn. Yeah, that's the Saturn in Pisces. Develop the dream.
Well, I think that's all the stuff that we had. Has anything occurred to y'all, that other thoughts or final points or anything we want to throw out there before we move into our tips and tricks?
I don't think I actually have anything to add. And my tip and trick, I guess, for this full moon is very much be gentle with yourself. What I said earlier, be kind with yourself and allow yourself chaos. If you're one of those people that need to control everything, allow a little bit of chaos and that flowy inspiration somewhere in your life. It doesn't have to overwhelm you. It doesn't have to take over the whole life. But find a space in your life that you can allow that. Or maybe it will be at the full moon when you just go with the flow and see what happens. And be gentle with yourself, because those energies in the skies are very eruptive. And they are very sudden and heavy.
And
my tip will be to to listen to your body and to try to do something that's good for your body, whatever. If it's to take walks, if it's to rest, if it's to just relax, listen to music, or just find like a place you can feel that you are winding down stress energy and stuff like that. So just like Monika said, be gentle with yourself. I say the same. And also because our bodies are also so sensitive to signals and to karmic stuff that is getting released and all kind of things. So that's my tip.
I'm going to tag right on there with you. Mine is also about the body. Find ways to support the body releasing tension, stress, toxins, all of those type of things. Think about what it is that helps you to feel more in your body, more embodied, and how do we release? If a pitcher is full of water and we add more water, it's just going to flow over, right? Then we're going to want to get the mop to clean it up. Let's not do that. Let's empty out that pitcher, that bucket. Let's make space to release from our body, from our muscles, from our cells, whatever we've been holding on to. And so we are then therefore ready to do the work of everything that's following. All right. Well, with that, looking forward to seeing what people comment on, how you add to our chat. Remember, this is the discussion. We would love to hear from you and your thoughts. Is the Virgo Pisces axis really important in your world right now? Are you feeling a resonance with one of the other transits we mentioned? How are you anticipating that Saturn switch from Aquarius to Pisces? Put your comments in. We'd love to hear. We'll respond back. And we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time when we approach the Aries new moon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us in this week's AstroChat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.